Welcome to Game Crunch, your weekly video game podcast. My name is Mike Anastasia. With me today we have Brandon,
Hello,
and we're here to talk about games and things.
it's me. I'm speaking about games and things.
Yeah, yes you
Yeah,
are.
yeah, I
Mhm.
am.
All
Yeah.
right, on the agenda today. Oh, we got fun new things today. It's nice after I feel like so long of just repeats.
Yeah.
Avowed, Civ 7, Elden
hmm
Ring, Nightreign, all are on the agenda for today.
All of it
So,
new. Every single
mhm.
bit of it.
Yeah, I mean I talked
Some
super
some of
briefly
it
about
literally
Civ.
doesn't
It's
even
not been
exist
much.
yet.
Yeah. hmm So, but yeah, ready to get into it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I can talk first. Um,
I was gonna say I could go first and mention something about Avowed, and then you can talk about Civ, and then I'll close it out with the big one. Because I
okay,
ain't got
works
much
for
to
me.
say about Avowed right now. Yeah, so
Okay.
I started up Avowed. We started playing it, and if you don't know, Avowed takes place in the Pillars of Eternity universe.
hmm
And honestly, it's pretty good so far. I like the idea of it. I like the ability to like dual wield, but not just like the normal kind of dual
hmm
wielding. Like for
Yeah.
instance, I have a character that has a grimoire in one hand where you can cast spells from it, and the other hand I have a gun. So I cast magic missile in my left hand, and in my right hand I cast American magic missile.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's actually quite fun. I'm not super far in,
hmm
but the general like world as well as like the art style, everything I really like about this game, and
hmm
I think it will be good in the long run. I'm not. I've like only finished like the tutorial and done like the first few missions, so don't
Yeah.
really have that much to say. But it's enjoyable so far. So there you go.
That's good. Yeah, I did just see while I was collecting news, there was a comment from Obsidian basically saying like, what did they say? Basically saying that they want their company to last 100 years, so they keep their budgets and game scope reasonable.
hmm
So trying to stay like within budget and not balloon, with the game content, like the game features or the budgets.
hmm
And I was like, that's good. I wish more developers did that. That would be great.
Yeah, I feel the same way because then maybe we wouldn't lose so many work, so many people wouldn't be fired.
Yeah,
Oh, that
no,
that
exactly.
reminds me, while I have you here for people being fired, Marvel Rivals supposedly had a lot of people fired very recently.
Yeah,
That
I did see that.
hugely successful game that everyone was playing and made a
Uh-huh.
shit ton of money. Yeah, let's just fire most of the staff. That's a pretty good idea, right?
I saw, and that was literally right after the first news article I saw about them was Marvel Rivals and talk for Switch 2 development, and then the next one was staff
hmm
laid off, and I was like, wow, that's kind of fucked up. But yeah, no, that's just it seems to be the industry
hmm
apparently, which sucks. Is that all you gotta say about Avowed?
Yeah, that's really all I have to say about Avowed. It's interesting game. I like it so far.
Okay, ready for my deeper dive on Civ 7?
hmm
Okay. So we got a new Civilization game now, obviously. So I think I talked about it last week. Like when they try to make a new sequel, they'll try to keep like 50% of the original like concepts, and then I think it's like 30% they'll make like new tweaks for, and then like 20% they'll be like brand new stuff, something like that. I don't remember exactly where the split is, but they try to keep they try to keep some old stuff and some new stuff instead of just going completely back to the drawing board or completely kind of rehashing. So I think they do a very good job. I mean, this game definitely fundamentally feels different than Civ 6 and Civ 5, the two that I have played a lot of. I love it though. I still love it, even after we talked about it last week. So I find this game is far less micromanaging. And just it has a lot more enjoyable things to do. I find the vanilla state of this game to be more enjoyable than say like Civ 6's final version of the game. So they added a lot of new stuff in there. Like I said, to make it a little bit less micromanaging. Cities now spread kind of naturally. Like when you get a population growth, you get to pick a tile to work on instead of having to assign builders, which is nice. So they kind of cities will kind of grow out from their center, and you're kind of putting the pieces in one by one. It also has a kind of and I'm actually surprised that they did not do this previously, but it kind of has like a leveling system now in the game where you actually get experience points based on different achievements that you get, which kind of you have like a couple different things that you're leveling up. You have like a base profile, which is kind of like your total experience, and you get different levels based on that. Most of the rewards you get for that are like cosmetic things. And then each leader has their own experience profile, but they get new skills as they level up. And one of the new things for this game is like mementos. These skills that you unlock mementos, and there are like different bonuses that you can apply. You get 2 slots. You can apply them
Okay.
each game, and you can change them in between ages. So some of them might be like one of them that I have increases my scouts visual range so they can see further. Another one I have, it's like I think it's every 100 tiles you see of the game explore, you get 50 gold in return. Sometimes they will give you points to use for some of the different leveling systems that they have, in the particular match, like military points or diplomatic points or cultural points, and you kind of do it that way. So there's a lot of nice variety on that side of things. It also has the big things with this one though is they changed how the game progresses. Instead of starting from like I think it's like 5000 BC to like beyond modern age, like the previous
Hmm.
games has. This one's broken up into 3 sections: the Antiquity Age, the Exploration Age, and the Modern Age. And each one kind of has their own. Each one's like playing its own standalone game in some ways.
Hmm.
So the Antiquity Age, it goes from I don't remember when it starts, a long, long, long time ago, and ends at like just before like 80, like 080. I think it ends like 500 BC. Um, but that might vary depending on when the game finishes. So, because kind of as you progress, there is this meter that fills up depending on how the players are doing with progression towards the goals. So each era has 4 different potential goals you can work towards.
Hmm.
And they're optional in the Antiquity Age and the Exploration Age at this time. But however, in the modern age, those are the requirements to end the game. So they do need to be completed within that time frame in the modern age, or it goes to like a score victory kind of thing. Um, but each age has, like I said, 4 different kind of things that you could work towards. There's a military goal, a cultural goal, an economic goal, and a science goal. And each one kind of varies depending on what they are. So, like for example, in the Antiquity Age, the cultural um, goal is to create 7 wonders. The science age goal is to collect 10 codexes, which is basically like a research task. You're kind of when they say codexes, is kind of like think like a book, like you're building books based on kind of elaborate knowledge. So you get those from researching higher end technologies. They'll usually give you codexes.
Okay.
The economic victory is you have to get 20 different trade resources um into your settlements. They can either be your own or from other settlements through merchants, but you have to have 20. And then the last one, the military one, you have to get, I think it's like 12 points is what it is. You get points from either creating settlements or taking over settlements. You get more points for taking over another player's settlements versus making your own settlements, but you have to get 12 points. Um, so yeah, so that's that. Those are the kind of variety that you can expect to see. So, and as you play through, they kind of have different things there. The exploration age is kind of more think like Columbus age, where you're exploring the new continents, or you're trying to spread religion, or you're trying to get resources from overseas. Those are kind of what the exploration age goals are. Modern goals are kind of more like not proving that you're the dominant civilization in the game. So that's where they are. I think that the games still take a long time. I think it's a couple hours for each age to get through. I think the Antiquity Age is like exquisite. I actually think that's a very very solid experience on its own from beginning to end. Like if you could play that on its own, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is actually a lot of fun. Like this is a great civ there too. But it's fun to just go roll through the ages and change each time an age ends. There are some things like because there's a time skip involved with it. So like wars will reset, things like city states will be reset, but everything kind of starts over, but kind of leaves you in a similar situation, I guess, in terms of where you were. Like some things, like how other civilizations think of you, those will kind of carry over a little bit age to age. So you have that kind of thing. Another thing that I really like is they got rid of barbarians in this game. Now they're kind of like city states, and if you they may be friendly, they may not, but if you invest resources into them, they can become a city state that's exclusive to you. Like you made their suzerain, um, and they will work with you and donate some of their stuff for you. So that's always really interesting there.
Okay.
There was one other thing I was just going to talk about too. Oh, one thing that's really kind of a big thing with this one is oh, and I cannot think of what it's called now. I keep trying to say interference, but that's not what it is. Not interference. What is it? It's kind of like a diplomacy system. I can't think of the word now. But there's a diplomacy system now too. So you get like a currency that you can generate each turn, kind of like gold or science or culture. And what it does is it gives you like diplomatic points that you can spend on other cultures. So like if let's say you meet a new civ for the first time, just like the other games will be like, hey, we're a new civ. Can we, sample your hospitality or whatever? Well, you get three options. The first one is like, yeah, sure, let's share information. But that costs you like 20 of those diplomatic points. Your other option is you can just like acknowledge them and be like, hello. Not really a positive or minus. It's a very like neutral response. That doesn't cost you anything to do it, but obviously you don't get any benefits from giving them a warm greeting. Actually, I had one civ the other day where I just greeted them neutrally, and the next turn they issued a grievance against me, and then I didn't. I don't think I had any diplomatic points to like say anything about it, so I just had to let it go and just let them not like me. So there's that. Other thing is too, you can also give them like a bad greeting. You can spend diplomatic points to do that. So basically, a lot of cases you have to spend money for either a good or a bad response, and depending on how profound it is, the cost goes up. Or there's
Hmm.
usually always a default response that's either neutral to slightly negative. So if you don't want to spend any of those diplomatic points, you want to use them on a city state or some other investments. You have to make sure you're saving those points, and they can be very valuable. So like civilization might come up to you and say, hey, do you want to pool resources and help grow our science together? Well, you got to use diplomatic points to do that. Otherwise, they get the advantage and you do not. So
Okay.
there's a lot of stuff like that going. It's that I feel is very well balanced. So I like that a lot. Obviously, there are some issues with this game. I will say, and this might just be, I think this is more of a PC thing, but I do not know. But there are lots of very unhappy longtime Civ fans with this game. Uh,
Yeah, that's what I saw too.
and which is really surprising because I like as this game was coming out, I like joined the Civ Reddit so I could kind of stay up to top on the news. And every time I open it up, it's the first thing I see is a complaint from that group. Like,
It's
oh,
currently not trending very well on Steam. Game is literally just ends in the 1940s. No option to keep playing. No real feeling of satisfaction other than a screen saying victory. It's like they got halfway through and they just decided, let's just save the rest for a DLC and ship it now. Not great. This is a huge fumble. Like these are reviews on Steam,
I
and it's
figured.
it's not very favorable reviews. I was a
No,
player of the series for over 30 years now. I started in multiplayer build of Civ 1, CivNet in the early 90s and have played every version, even that train wreck console port Revolution extensively. Civ 7 is just an absolute fail. I can't even really begin to put into words how badly 2K and Firaxis missed the mark here. Literally, the catchphrase of the entire franchise has always been one more turn. You can't one more turn in Civ 7. When a victory condition is reached, which is convoluted, nightmarish mess of nonsense to reach now, the game just hard ends. Is this true? That's my question to you.
yes. Once you finish the game, it ends. It doesn't give you a chance to continue.
So this person's not even wrong
No, they're not wrong.
about that aspect of the game.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But at the same point though, you were still able to easily play the game from beginning to end. Like
Hmm.
it's not like what they're asking for is like they just want to keep playing after the fact. Like just let it keep going. Which sure, they've done that before. But it's not like they necessarily have to do that. I think that's a lot of my thing here too. Like I
So
understand.
here's one more thing this person
Yeah,
has as a negative. Let's see what you think. The visuals are absolutely stunning. Every pixel in this game is gorgeous and completely overwhelms the units and buildings that make up the actual usable portion of the game. You can quite literally not see the forest from the trees. Your units get visually lost in the undergrowth of the map. Your settlement buildings are muted and indistinct, and there's no visual cues to tell you what does what, or how much FPIH you're getting. Faith, I don't remember what all those stand for, but you know what I'm
yeah,
talking
that's
about,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So what do
No,
you
I
what do you
know
think
what
about that?
the acronym is. There is, and I think I mentioned it last week too. Game definitely has some UI issues.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they're anything that should stop you from enjoying the game.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the stuff is like most of the stuff that people are complaining about UI issues are the Civilopedia is not as detailed as I would like it to be,
Yeah,
or
that's literally here. That's in this guy's review as well. The
yeah,
UI is nearly useless. No detailed city information to tell us how much X is needed to progress Y. There's raw data for food. There's raw data for food production, income, happiness. Like there's always been, but there's nothing to tell you how many foods I need to make my next population. The Civilopedia, once the absolute hallmark of in-game aids in the industry, is now nothing more than a useless historical data entry. Guys, if I wanted what you put in the Civilopedia, I'd have gone to Wikipedia instead. I need to know what the Civipedia has always told us. How does X thing I just looked up affect the game in real game terms, not what it does in the real world? Okay.
yeah. I mean, if you use
There's
it for
a
that,
lot of
definitely
complaints
look.
here. Like,
Huh?
holy shit. There's a lot of complaints here. Like, holy shit.
Oh, I
This guy
know.
wrote a fucking thesis on how bad this game is.
It
By the way,
sounds like it,
he
but
also
also
has
at the same time though, like I don't know,
46
like
hours.
but see, this is my thing with the Civilopedia. Like the Civilopedia, this is not like it might just be me. Like I said,
Mhm.
and I think I said it last week too about the UI. Like a lot of the stuff that people are having issues with were never things that affected me and still continue to not affect me. So really depends on how you play. So obviously people are going to have different mileage. Not saying that this guy's complaints are invalid. Like, yeah, you could look. The Civilopedia is not as complete as it was in the previous versions, but the way I look at it was like I never really used the Civilopedia anyways because
Mhm.
it was never super convenient to get to. Like I don't want to click through 3 menu screens when I have I have a computer in front of me or my fucking phone. Like I can look at
Yeah.
that so fast.
Yeah,
I can look it up so much faster
I
any other
absolutely get
way.
that, but I think if you're like a hardcore Civ person and this is something you're used to, that's kind of a
Yeah.
big fumble there, you know?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, like I said, there's definitely people who are going to have some issues with it, but I think that people are trying to make this into a much bigger issue than it actually is
So
for
I
some of
don't
these
know
things.
if that's the case. I think what you need to understand a little bit here is when in at least the PC gaming space, right? And
Hmm.
I know this is might be a little bit hard to understand, but a lot of people will adopt one game and that is their PC game. That
Oh
is
yeah.
their everything. They play
Hmm.
every single game that's made by that, in that like thing. And a lot of these games are these big, huge 4X strategy games, that sort of things. Like Civ fans are huge. Like
Oh yeah.
they are only Civ fans pretty much.
Hmm.
That's a big part of it. So like if you take something away from them that's been there from the beginning, they are going to see it as a negative because they are not okay with that bullshit. Like they're
Oh yeah.
way more
Hmm.
prone to be like, this is just a product of the industry getting worse and taking away things and having larger budgets and giving us less with said larger budgets. And I think a lot of PC gamers realize that when their favorite game gets fucked in a sequel. So I don't really know if it's so much nitpicking as it is really, really, really dedicated people to this series that feel like they've been burned because of the fact that they have been given less, even more so than what they were in the past. I think that's kind of where these people are coming from.
Oh, I
I'm not
understand
I'm
that
not
completely. But
100% sure myself because I'm not a huge
mhm.
Civ fan. Like I'm not a
Yeah.
big Civ head. Like I'll play it from time to time. It's a good series, but like
Yeah.
you know,
No, and I agree with you. Like I said, a lot of it's going to depend on how you play, but a lot of
mhm,
times too, like a lot of the complaints that people have, his is actually more, I would say understandable. A
mhm,
lot of the
mhm,
other stuff are like, I don't like the way that they did religion, or I don't like the way that they did this, or Civ 6
mhm,
has this,
mhm.
And I'm looking at it, I'm like, you're comparing a game that had um 7 years of support with multiple expansions
Yeah.
and multiple updates, and you're like, it's missing this feature. Okay, yeah, but they also had, so much more time. Like you're complaining about something that's been, in a game that's been well established for like a decade, and you're back to a vanilla version again. Like
Hmm.
obviously you're not going to have like all of the features that you had in the previous game plus more. Like you need to look at it like an incremental thing.
Hmm.
Um so yeah, no, like I said, I totally understand people's complaints. Like I said,
Hmm.
I don't disagree that people are going to have issues with it depending on how you're playing,
Yeah.
especially like I said, those hardcore people.
Yeah.
But like
Absolutely.
I said, also but that said though, I also think at the end of the day, a lot of the things that people are not happy about not being there should not stop you from enjoying the game. So like I said, kind of teach their own. People are going to have issues no matter what. I think that this game has a very solid base, and I think it's only going to keep getting better from
So,
where it
so
is.
what are you
So,
playing this on? Out of curiosity,
I told you
because I
it's on
know.
the Switch. Yeah.
Oh, it is on the Switch. Okay. All right.
Yeah. And like I said last week too about it. Honestly, I think the Switch version runs better than Civ 6 than it does.
Okay. That's good.
Um, I've only had it. I think I've had it crash on me twice, but it's never actually been in gameplay. It's
Okay.
been during loading screens, like if I'm like loading up the game, and it was already like usually it's from when I'm transitioning from the exploration age to the modern age. I've had it crash there,
Hmm.
but it's been while it's been loading to the new thing. So when I restart it, it's not like I'm losing any time, like nothing, and it just kind of I think it just overwhelms itself with the transition.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I've only had that happen twice, and I've definitely put well more than 50 hours into it already.
Okay.
So um, yeah, I think it runs very stable. I would not say, at least from what I read, does not sound the same to be like that on PlayStation. I've seen a couple people talk about it on PlayStation, and they said that they've been repeatedly getting crashes. I have not
Mm,
had the issue. I think it runs very well on console. I think they made some nice adjustments to how it controls on console as well.
yeah.
But there are some features that I would like controller wise that have not been implemented yet. But
So
not anything that really
why,
blows
while
my
we are talking, right, about
mind.
this and crashing, you reminded me of something. I had a single crash in Avowed, and it had the funniest crash name ever. And I want to read it to you. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go find it because I took a picture of it. And I was like, "What the fuck is this?" Here it is. Let me see if I can get it again. Oh yeah, the UE Alabama game has crashed.
Oh, weird.
And it literally is spelled out Alabama in all caps. I mean, not all caps, just capital A and then Alabama. So,
Uh-huh.
like, I guess the internal name for this is UE Alabama game? What the fuck is that?
Hey, well, nobody's gonna be able to guess what's going on with that. So,
The Unreal Engine Alabama game. I was
yeah.
like, what the fuck? You like fuck your sister or something in this game later on, and I just haven't got there yet.
um. Anyways, other things that are in Civ, like each civilization now has their own like unique civilization, like cultural tree. Like everyone still has like a base like cultural progression, but each civilization has their own kind of unique cultural tree as well. I think that's pretty cool. Um, they've made it so that there's commanders now for the military units. So unlike before, the commanders were kind of disposable. Now they're kind of more unique, I guess is probably the best way to put it. So, and they have some neat features too. Like you can press a button and instantly group up some enemies there, and you can actually even have it so that if you are doing like if you send out a new enemy, you can just deploy it right to the commander. So it still has to walk across the map, but it will kind of do it on its own, which is nice. Um, yeah, I really, like I said, I really enjoy it. I honestly, I can't put it down. So yeah, there's definitely some UI flaws. I would say some other things that probably need to be worked on, like some of the goals in the exploration age in terms of UI stuff, not always clearly explained, or probably could use some tweaking. Like I said, this is a vanilla game. Like but I do think that this game, at least to my memory, definitely more of a complete game, like hands down, like not even a contest from Civ 6. So if you're comparing vanilla Civ 6 to vanilla Civ 7, like there's far more of a complete game here in 7 than there ever was in 6 at the same time. And I would say the same for 5 as well. So, like I said, definitely not for everyone, and people seem to be have varying mileage. I would say at least community wise, it seems to be pretty evenly split. Like 50% of the fans are not happy, 50% of the fans are. But like I said, a lot of the complaints that I've seen, I don't know if they would be happy even if some of these other things were fixed, because I like, for example, like this broken Civilopedia, like
Mhm.
I don't think if that was fixed, if that's necessarily going to be like, oh yeah, this game's great now. Like
No,
it's
probably not. But I do think
mm,
that that is something that would um, lead to, that'd be a step in the right direction for those more hardcore fans. You know what I mean?
oh yeah, and I'm sure they will fix it in time. It's gonna get there, but like I said, a lot of this stuff is not anything that should deter you from playing the game. But I also don't play in the highest difficulties either. Like maybe if you're going through like min max things, like yeah, maybe there's a lot of information there that's not missing. But
Well, it's
um,
like you and me. We're not Civ heads. We're not like
no,
the biggest fans or anything. Yeah, I
mm,
I give it a passing glance every now and again, and you've become like very addicted to it. But you just really like the game. You're not the kind of person that plays one game for 30 years.
yeah,
Because there are literally people who have done that, who are still playing Civ 2 and have a game that's been running for like 30 years. That's insanity.
oh yeah,
Those are the crazy people,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. You know how it'll be for me. I'll probably play it for another week or two, and then I'll be like, all right, time for new things.
And then you'll
So
check back in like a few months and be like, I really like this game still. Look at all the DLC they released.
yeah, look at all the DLC. Well, because I bought the one edition, so it comes with DLC. So I know it's gonna. I'll be back to it in a couple months just to see what's new. Um, but yeah, at least so far, like I said, I really like it. So I wasn't lying last week, and I said like, there's no way this game's not making my top 10 list of this year. Like it's definitely there somewhere. Where it will be, I don't know, because obviously
Mm,
it's like
mm, mm.
I have 2 games to choose from so far. So
Yeah.
uh, but no, it's solid enough that I'm very happy with it. So,
Okay.
do you have
Nice.
any questions on it? Anything else I can answer for you?
No, not really. I feel like this is gonna be a wait for the Game of the Year edition or Ultimate Bundle edition thing when it's on sale a few months. It's like 6 months down the road, 8 months
Oh
down the road. That's
yeah.
probably where I will step in for this. I never stepped in for Civ 6 because everyone that played it told me it was never good. So I just was, and these were people that really like Civ. So like they're the people I would have played Civ with. So there's
Hmm.
no point to it. So if this ends up becoming better, and my friends that actually play Civ are like, "Yeah, this got really good. Let's play it," then I would probably jump back in. But yeah,
Yeah.
not right now.
Yeah, I would say even to that kind of thought too. Like, I don't remember if I said it. Probably not, because the game of the year was kind of going on like while all of this was going on. But
Hmm.
uh, like I had actually started a game of Civ 6 just maybe like a couple days before Civ 7 came out. Just be like, I'm gonna get one last match in. I didn't even end up finishing it. Like it's just Civ 6 is so long and drawn out and tedious. It is so nice that they made so many changes to this game. Like they got rid of a lot of the TDM. They made it a lot faster
Yeah, it makes me
to the
wonder:
return.
is Civ 6 long and tedious, and is Civ 7 like just a better game, right? Or is like Civ 7 just Civ 5 again, but with less features? That's what I'm wondering. Because did you
Oh
ever
no.
play Civ 5?
Civ,
Civ
yeah,
5 is like one of my favorites. It's so good. I
yeah,
love Civ 5.
okay. Yeah, and I like Civ 5 a lot too. And this is definitely not Civ 5. Like they have
Okay,
changed the
well we need to
gameplay.
get there. We need to get there.
Yeah. They have changed Civ 7's gameplay so different from Civ 5. It doesn't play like it. Doesn't play like Civ 6. Like I said, it seems like one of their goals was to decomplicate the game and make it faster. And that's actually I honestly think that's the bigger complaints I think from long-term Civ players.
Hmm.
I just don't think they're articulating it very well. Like this game, it still feels like Civ, but it feels very different from the previous ones.
Hmm.
And I think that there might be too many changes from the previous that are really kind of off-putting to people. I don't think it's a bad game. Like I said, I think that this is I think even in this current state, it is my favorite of the 3 Civ games that I have played. But yeah, no, mileage is definitely going to vary depending on what you like with the franchise. And I think
Hmm.
that's the thing with this game, because it's so expansive and it has such a history that sometimes those smaller tweaks are gonna be affect that player base more. Um, so yeah, like I said, we'll kind of see where it comes out, but um, for I guess maybe the non-hardcore Civ fans, I think it's great. So I really enjoy it.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. All right. That's all I'm gonna say about Civ 7 now. Unless you have anything
All right.
you want to know.
No.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about the game I played this weekend the
Okay.
most, and I
Yeah.
mean the absolute most.
Mm-hmm.
So I got. Oh, let me paint you a picture first and foremost. I was looking for a key for Elden Ring Nightreign, which is the new 3-player co-op Elden Ring game that comes out in May.
Yeah.
I didn't get the key in January because I didn't get to sign up, because the week that you could sign up for it, the only week that you could sign up for it, I had the flu.
Oh,
and
fun.
I could not get out of bed, so I missed it. So I went on to Reddit, as you do, looking around, and I couldn't find anything. I was refreshing the Elden Ring what do you call it, subreddit every now and again, checking to see if anyone was giving away a key, and all I would see is people being like, I'm buying a key for $20, I'm selling a key for $40, blah 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 blah, all this dumb shit and everything. And it was always like PS5 keys, and I don't have PlayStation Plus right now, so that really wouldn't work for me. I had to get up early one morning, and I don't remember why. It was like 5 in the morning, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to pull up the subreddit. Literally, as I pulled it up, newest post: have a key for Xbox, don't need it. Is anyone interested? And then I clicked it, and then the second post was the same guy with a screenshot of the key and the code. I immediately pulled up my Xbox account, typed in the key, and it worked. It confirmed, and I was like, yes, I got it. So I got super lucky and got a key for Elden Ring Nightreign, which was very exclusive. Not a lot of people got it. This game is definitely 100% going to have a lot of mixed reactions.
Mm-hmm.
I love Souls games. You know I love Souls games.
Yes, you do.
I also love battle royales. I also love roguelikes. Spoiler alert, this is not a battle royale. This is not a battle royale, which is what everyone thought this was going to be from the way it was like it was what it was being presented at and what people were guessing it was, because it has a ring that closes in on you of fire, as of like Fortnite rings, like Apex Legends rings, like Call of Duty Warzone rings, all those things, those battle royale games and their ways of closing in on you and forcing the player to go somewhere. That is not what this is, and that's what I'm going to talk about. This is not a battle royale, and I need to say that a million times so more people will get it, because the most people are saying like, I'm not interested in a fucking Elden Ring battle royale, and I'm just like, that's good, because it's not, so shut the fuck up. So what is Nightreign? Nightreign is closer to something like Monster Hunter, but with roguelike elements. Now, this game had network tests that were 3 hours twice a day for 3 days. I played all of them.
Okay.
And I also played more than all of them because I figured out something. So I had, by the end of it, about 20 hours in this game that has not released yet. So let's go ahead and talk about that, shall we? It's great. All right, So this game, when you get into the game, you start at the Round Table Hold, which is like the starting area, and not the starting area, but like the level up area, the place where you get lore and where you build your weapons and stuff in the original Elden Ring game. This is a new form of Round Table, but it's obviously reusing assets from the original game. In this place, what you do is you're able to select your character. You're also able to interact with different NPCs. However, these NPCs cannot be interacted with in a meaningful way right now because it's not the full game. And then you go to the round table and you hit, select. You start a match and ask you what boss you want to hunt on night 3. And during the network test, you only have the option of one boss. So you can only play one boss for the final night. The way this game works is you have 3 nights that you have to survive. night 1 and night 2 is like a gear up night where you're like going around the open world area and defeating bosses and like smaller enemies and leveling yourself up. And it's very fast paced. And as you do that, it allows you to, get a higher level and use better weapons and that sort of thing. And each night for night 1 and night 2 is about 20 minutes long. And then you have the night 3 boss after all of that. So night 1 and night 2, the way it's laid out is depending on where you're dropped in, and I noticed this while playing it, depending on where you're dropped in, you pretty much can already guess what bosses you're going to fight because everything was stagnant during the network test. I'm pretty sure they said they were going to change that, and it's going to be very different in the actual official release of the game. Before you go to the round table, you choose from your characters. There were 4 characters you could choose from. There was Wilder, who was your general knight with a shield and sword, that sort of deal. But you also have a grappling hook that you can use to pull enemies to you or pull yourself to enemies, depending on how big the enemy is. And then your special was you had this like flame blast that you can shoot out of your hands, pretty much. And it's like a huge explosion, blows them up. It does a lot of damage, that sort of deal. You had Guardian, which is a hawk guy with a gigantic fuck off shield and a big like pole arm. This is your general tank character. He holds down the fort. He has all these different abilities where his 2 main abilities are oh goodness, give me 1 second. He has this wind ability where he flaps his wing and then it causes like a whirlwind. So if it's like a smaller enemy, it flings them up into the air and you can just like start juggling them essentially. But if it's a bigger enemy, it'll stun them, which gives you enough time for you and your team to start attacking them. And then there's the main attack that the Hawk has, which is he flies up into the air and then dive bombs down onto the enemy or your teammates. And I'm going to explain in just a second what I mean by or your teammates, because that's actually very, very important. In this game, when you get downed, you don't die. You have a certain amount of time to be revived by your teammates. And the way the revival works from your teammates is they have to do damage to you. But here's the thing. All of your abilities count as damage. So if you're the Hawk guy and 2 of your teammates are down and they're in the same general area and you fly up into the air and then dive bomb onto them, you will res both of them at the same time because you just use your ultimate to do enough damage to revive them instantly. And there's a lot of little elements that can be used with different synergies with different characters to help heal teammates or help deal damage with your teammates to like bosses and that sort of thing. I found Guardian's abilities easier to use as a revive than it was to use as just like a boss attack. I felt like the other 3 had better boss attacks essentially, which is going to bring me to the last 2 characters. Duchess, who was my favorite. She moves like Bloodborne characters. So instantly I already fell in love with this character because it was like having the movement of Bloodborne in Elden Ring, and I really, really liked that. I was very, very happy about it because they won't give me another Bloodborne, so I'm going to make it myself. Fuck you. Anyway, Duchess's abilities were super cool. She had one ability where she pulls like a cloak on everyone, and everyone goes invisible for a while. And this ability allows you and your teammates to beat the shit out of anything on the field, be it like a group of wandering enemies, or if fighting a boss, you want to have your first move be running into the boss and immediately just beating the shit out of it without the risk of it seeing you and immediately drawing aggro. You can do that with Duchess's ability, but her second ability was so fucking cool because you could combo it with the other ability. And what that ability is no matter how much damage you do to the boss, you can replay that damage, or enemies, obviously. You can replay that damage, and then there's like an after effect from where you just did that damage to the boss, and that after effect starts taking the damage you just did, and that's transferred over to the enemy or boss that you just fought. So it's like being able to get double hits in one attack, and it's super cool. So I really like that ability, which It was fun. Duchess is probably my favorite character. I'll go ahead and tell you that. Although she's not the character I won the game with, because I did win the game. I literally beat the network test, which is fucking hilarious to me. I was
That's funny.
apparently one of the first people to do it, which is fucking cool. I was so excited about that. So that was awesome. I beat the network test day one in the first like hour, essentially.
Mhm.
So neat, super cool. So that was at 6 a.m.
Okay.
and I did it. And yeah, I think the only reason I was able to was because a lot of the people trying to play on PlayStation were unable to do so because the servers were completely fucked for them. They didn't get to play a lot during this network test, which really sucked. I was
Yeah,
playing on
that's
Xbox. I had no issue whatsoever. Everything was golden. I kept getting teammates. We kept doing runs. It was awesome. I loved it. I loved it a lot. So moving on from that. Next part, there was a fourth character, and her name is Recluse. She is the spellcaster, so she has the ability to obviously cast spells from like her staff, and that takes up a lot of FP. But if you build her correctly, you can just demolish enemies. But there was another thing that made her very, very interesting. That's the fact that she can grab magic from attacks that have been dealt to bosses or enemies. So let's say you have your Wilder who just did his flame explosion attack, and now the boss has been hit by fire. If you, as Recluse, then grab the flame explosion attack that was just done to them, you now have one charge of fire. And you can do different charges of like fire, lightning, ice, whatever, that sort of thing. And each one of those charges kind of come together in like a sort of like melting pot, and they're able to do like ultimate damage. You're then able to cast that ultimate damage with your like special attack, special ability. And it makes it so you quite literally just demolish enemies and bosses by building out things based off the damage done by your teammates as well as yourself, and being able to capture those attacks that they are doing. The Recluse I only played a few times because the tech for playing that character went way over my head and I didn't fully understand it. So I was just like, I would rather be a fast boy and stab things with my magical daggers than deal with this shit, which is what I ended up doing instead. Or I'd rather play as the Hawkman, or I'd rather play as, the knight. I just can't do Recluse. I tried and I just couldn't. It wasn't for me. So general rule of thumb is when you first land, because you get dropped into the map, you want to find lower tier enemies and defeat them. This will give you runes like you would get in Elden Ring. You then take those runes and go to a site of grace like you would in Elden Ring, and you level yourself up. When you first drop in, the first thing you want to do is focusing on getting like that first level, because you go from having very, 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 very little health to at least a substantial enough amount where you can do damage and not be afraid of instantly dying. So first thing you should do when you first get in is get your first level. Then after that, you should focus on bosses, because every time you kill a boss, you get loot, and the loot that comes out of the bosses can be any kind of weapon. So it's all random. It's like a roguelike, essentially, where you beat this difficult card boss, say in Slay the Spire. Here's a card that you can add to your deck, or whatever, that sort of thing. Or you did this thing in Hades, you've got a new weapon unlocked back at the place and you can use this new weapon, that sort of deal. But instead here, it's in these 20-minute runs in the first night and the second night, you are able to get a bunch of items that are, the same stuff from Elden Ring. So you kind of know what those items already do. You already know what those weapons already do if you played Elden Ring. And if you don't, it explains it enough that you can figure it out. And each weapon has a different art to it, and the art is like special attacks. So you may get something, for instance, like a axe that when you press left trigger and like charge it up, you attack with like a big fireball where you like drag your axe into the ground and then pull it back up and you like throw fire at your enemy in front of you, something like that. And you want to find the best weapons that you possibly can in the shortest amount of time and level up at the same time, and then you'll be boxed in slowly by that ring of fire that I talked about that's similar to something like a battle royale, but that's the only element from a battle royale in this game, period. So I will say that at least. And that element is there purely to dictate the pace of the game. Because if you're outside of the fire circle, you're taking damage over time. So you need to quickly defeat enemies and defeat bosses and explore areas to get your items that you need so that you can go from one boss to another to the major boss that you fight at the end of night 1, and then do it again on night 2, and then fight the major boss night 2, and then after all of that, you go on to night 3, which consists only of the major boss battle. And the major boss battle night 3 is a new boss that's not been in any of the Souls games that they have created specifically for this game. It seems like that's what they're going to do with the other major bosses that you fight and hunt. So that's the general consensus of how the game works. So I broke that down now. So what happens if you die? If you die, like I said, if you die by losing all your health, you can go down and be revived by a teammate. But if all 3 teammates, all 3 players die, then there's no one to revive you, obviously. And if it's not at a major boss fight for night 1, night 2, or the final boss, you get revived at the last site of grace that you visited. However, you also lose a level. So death still has consequences, because if you go D rank, if you go down a level, you might not be able to use that weapon that you got earlier, because it might be a higher level than you are now because you lost your level fighting that last boss. So now you're kind of fucked, and you got to use one of your older weapons instead. Or you might have lost some other things, like, the ability to continue, building the character that you wanted to, because, now you got to change up on the fly and figure out something else, because, that death, be it at the hands of a boss or at the hands of just normal enemies, it kind of is going to set you back some, and that's a bit of a problem. So what do? Well, you have to, double up. You have to go faster. You have to continue searching around for items and weapons and little enemies to fight, as well as, mini bosses to fight, until you can go and fight that major boss. But like I said, if you die at that major boss, it's game over. Okay. And that goes for night 1 boss, night 2 boss, and the final boss. So that's how that works. At the end of your run, if you win or lose, you get these stones, and these stones give you the ability to change up your character permanently, sort of like any other roguelike, where you unlock something at the end of it, and it does something for your character. So, for instance, I was playing as Wilder, and we lost on night 2, which is something that happened very often while I was playing. My team would almost always lose on night 2, except for the one team that I beat the game with the first time that we tried it. But yeah, I actually got stones for other characters. So other characters may have a different stone that they can have equipped to them. So for instance, Duchess is, she's more of a rogue. She's fast. She does a lot of damage very quickly and over time as well. But she can't take that much damage and whatnot. So I got a stone for her that I could permanently slot into her character, which made it so I did +2 bleed damage. So every time I hit someone with my weapon, no matter what weapon it was, it didn't matter. I would do bleed after so many hits, and the bleed damage procs and does a lot of damage over time then. So you can build your character up like that, and you can do other things such as plus intelligence, or plus this, that, and the other, plus stamina. And it works with a lot of different characters very differently. And those were the permanent unlocks you got at the end of a run if you won or lost. Also, at the end of said run, win or lose, you would get some form of currency, which everyone has assumed, and FromSoft has pretty much all but confirmed. That currency will allow you to cosmetically change your characters. However, none of that was in the network test, so you could not do that in the network test at the time. And all of these bosses that you fight, the major bosses for night 1, 2, and 3, they are all designed with 3 players in mind. and it is built around the multiplayer synergy of each one of the characters that you could be playing as, or that your teammates could be playing as. There's also little elements there, like they're able to tag things on the map to show you where they're going next without ever communicating with you via words what's going to happen. So if you play with someone, and for instance, this network test didn't allow people to use microphones, which was kind of weird, but whatever. People were able to communicate with me and each other by marking places on the map so that I would know this is where we're going next. So I could split off from the group for a while and fight some enemies and then meet back up with them at that place, which they've marked on the map. So I know where we're going to go, where we're going to end up at. And then we'd fight the mini boss there and get some items from it, or we would take out the encampment of enemies that are there and get runes from it so we could level up or what have you. It really felt like everyone was working together even without being able to communicate with each other. And I really like that aspect of it. Otherwise, it had, the Souls-like combat, and it felt really fun to play, and it was very fast. You could finish an entire run in an hour. So
it's good. It's good
I liked it. I liked it a lot. It's something different. It's something new, and I kind of really enjoy what they're going for here. Because I do like Monster Hunter things, and I also love Souls-like games. And even though obviously I'm not trying to craft things by ripping off parts from the enemies that I defeat, it's still kind of like that because I'm trying to get items from defeating all these mini bosses, which allow me to build my character. And then at the end, I'm also getting from the major bosses a item that allows me to permanently build my character. So I think it kind of works, and I'm really excited for what they're going to do with this game.
Yeah, it will be really interesting. It's a nice departure for them. I know some people were initially kind of worried about the 3-player only thing.
Yes.
But it sounds like that works really well. And it makes a lot of sense too that they wouldn't allow microphones with this one, just so they can test out those, the non-talking details as well, so that you can.
It's also FromSoft is weird, so who knows? Maybe when the game actually comes out, you still won't be able to talk. It's entirely possible because FromSoft's weird like that. They don't really do things normally. So I told you everything I really liked about this game, and I really liked this game. But now I'm going to break down what I didn't like about this game because it's only fair to do that.
Yeah.
First and foremost, this game, after a while, became incredibly samey. Mostly because of the fact that I kept playing in the same open map. It never changed. The mini bosses were in the same location. That never changed. And there were only 2 layouts for where bosses are that I would be fighting, and 2 layouts for what my Night 1, Night 2 boss were always going to be for the major bosses. Once I figured that out, I could build my character very well around that general idea. But at the same time, it really showed how shallow that this could become without a lot of content at launch, and then a lot of content over time. So unless there is content that is pumped into this game for a while, and I'm going to say for free, because it really needs to be for free. Even if it's just mixing up where you land and how you start the game, or mixing up what bosses you fight, that sort of deal. There needs to be a lot of it there because you see the same biomes, where you're going to go, if you go into the church that you're going to fight the old hags, and then you're going to fight the dogs, and then you're going to go underground in the church, and then you're going to fight the flame mancer guy, and once you defeat him, then you're going to get your first item, and then you're going to leave the church, and then you're going to go down the road, and you're going to go here and there, and and basically after the first few games I was able to map out where each location was, and it felt samey because me and my team would always run that path because we kind of found out what path, and most of the community found out what path was the best for leveling up quickly. So unless some things are changed up to give it more variety, I do feel like this could become stale very quickly. However, they have already mentioned they're going to have other classes, they're going to have other bosses, they're going to have other wandering bosses, because that is a thing that happened. After Night 1, during Night 2, you can be fighting a boss, and then another boss can just show up and wreck your shit as well, and then you have to fight 2 bosses at the same time. And that shit got really hectic, because that boss would chase you until you either beat him and made it so all your special abilities recharge faster, or you lost and made it so you took more damage from major bosses. So there was like a give and take, that sort of deal. So it was really, really, really tough. But I really enjoyed it. It just needs the content to be able to have the staying power. Luckily, this game is only a $40 game and not a full price title at 70. So that's great for everyone. But it still is going to need something, to make it stick around. And without it, even the network test kind of already showed us there could be some problems.
Well,
So here's
I agree with
hoping
you. Those kind of
that
games
isn't
do
the
need
case.
a lot of content.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Here's
hopefully they
hoping
do.
that's not the case, and is what I'm saying. That's my main takeaway.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it sounds like it's very interesting. It's good that it's really enjoyable because I feel like that's almost such a departure from what's normal that really would have to have a good hook. So,
So here's the thing about this game, right?
mhm.
It's being made by like someone that is in training at FromSoft. He's like Miyazaki's understudy essentially, and Miyazaki was like, "You want to try making a game? All right, go for it." And this is the game that this person made.
Uh-huh.
And Miyazaki basically just oversaw the game to make sure everything like worked and whatnot, and like it still had the quality, but he pretty much let him make the game however he wanted it to be, which I think is very, very interesting because you don't see companies and you don't see big major like developers allow people to do that nowadays. So yeah,
It sounds good.
I hope it works out for him because I really enjoyed it. I will definitely be there day one because even right now I would like to play more of it, but I can't because it doesn't exist anymore.
Well,
So
soon. You said what, April?
May
May.
30th, so almost April, close.
Yeah, not too far. Just like what would it be, 3 months? Not bad. Yeah. Well, anything else on it?
No, I really like this game and I will definitely be buying it.
Okay. All right. Great move on the news.
Yes, absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. Well, the piece of news I want to talk about, Nintendo's making some changes to their digital purchase bonuses. So, I don't know if these announcements just came out today. Today is the first day I've seen them, but it's now known that Nintendo is ending their gold points program starting next month. So that is definitely something that is ending. And what that is basically I think it's basically for every 5% of purchases you make, you get those back in gold coins, and the gold coins give you, it's basically each gold coin's worth a penny, so you can use that to get money off of your games. And the other thing that they've announced too, or at least made clear, is that the voucher program that exists currently is only for the current Switch games. So you won't have that $100 to get 2 digital games anymore. They just said that it's only for the Switch, the first one. So no clue if there's going to be replacement programs for either of these for the new system at this point. But I will say, as much as people like to say how unconsumer friendly Nintendo is, these two things have saved me hundreds of dollars. So I'm definitely going to miss them. So I take good advantage of both of those. So, and I've definitely gotten multiple free games. Like I said, hundreds of dollars worth of savings. So there's that. They've been pretty good incentives for people buying digital. Although I think in this day and age, they started the programs when digital acceptance was not as high, and I think people have warmed up to it a lot more now. So maybe not as necessary, but it'll still be missed. So I really do hope that they had a voucher program for the Switch too, though. That'll be nice, especially considering that those prices are probably going to jump up next gen. So maybe they just don't want to do 2 games for $100 when they're selling them for 70 a piece.
Yeah, I'm thinking that might be the case.
Yeah, hey, but I'd still take, like, if they're going to jump up to 70, still even 120 would be nice. I'll take it. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing. Obviously, there's Switch presentation coming on April. We've talked about that a couple times, so that's on the way. And also, it seems less likely now. There's been a rumored Nintendo Direct this month for a while, but literally, unless they do it tomorrow or Thursday, not happening. So
yeah,
Because I think if I
It's gonna be
remember
it's gonna be announced tomorrow and then happen Thursday.
I mean, it could be. I mean, that's what they do with Direct. You get the
Yeah.
announcement, the day beforehand. But uh, I think it's next week is the Pokemon Direct, so they're not going to do that on the same week. So,
Hmm.
yeah, so it's either now or never. So, because I don't think they do it in March. I mean, they might, but um, yeah, just less likely. Xenoblade Chronicles X comes out next month, Definitive Edition.
That's
So they
right.
got that coming out. But I guess it really depends on what they're sitting on. If they got stuff to talk about, I'm sure they will. If they don't have stuff to talk about, then they'll wait. So Nintendo, you never know. Um, yeah, that's all I gotta say about those. You want to talk about the state of play?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
State of Play happened, and they showed off some things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things that were shown here we already knew about, and I think a lot of people were saying the same thing. But I'm just gonna do a quick rundown of some of the things that we were shown.
Okay.
Yeah. So we saw Shinobi Art of Vengeance
Mm-hmm.
and Sonic Racing, new Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, which seems to be like having the like Ratchet and Clank like wormholes slash like uh that sort of thing where you
Uh-huh.
go in and out of chain time loop time Jesus Christ, I can't even think right now. You know what I mean. You go from one world to another by going through a portal. So there you go.
Okay.
Time rifts, yeah, something like that. There you go. They announced a new Digimon game, which takes place after the other two that happened the
I know
last few
people are
years.
stupid excited for that.
It's Are they actually? Because I saw a lot of people like shitting on it, and I was like, wow, that sucks because these games are really good.
Oh no, all the comments I saw on Reddit were people were very hyped for it.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Lost Souls side, which this game actually has a very interesting story. So I saw this game when it was being worked on by one guy, and he just shared his work on it on Imager, and was
Mm-hmm.
like showing it off and everything. Apparently, they teamed up with Sony, and Sony gave them a whole team to work on the game,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's coming out this year. And like this was the pre-order announcement, which goes live on February 19th. They then announced Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii will be getting a demo, which it did, and then it went live last Friday. So
Okay.
that's pretty cool. I did play a little bit of that, which is very good as well. I'm looking forward to being able to play the full game tomorrow, I think. I don't know. Anyway, it's a good game.
Okay.
I'm excited for that game. I mean, you know how I feel about the Yakuza games, so.
Yeah.
Dave the Diver announced a collaboration with Yakuza, so there's that. WWE showed off its new single player mode, I guess, which looked pretty cool.
Okay.
We then saw Borderlands 4, which I could give less of a fuck about, with a
Mm-hmm.
release date of September 22nd. Split Fiction, which is the game from the people that did It Takes Two and A Way Out, was shown off, and that game still looks very, very good. Directive 8020, which is a new game from the people that made like the Dark Pictures anthology. In fact, I believe this is a fourth game in that series. It was announced and it'll be releasing October 2nd, which seems to be a sci-fi survival horror game done in the same way as like Until Dawn and the Dark Picture anthology games. So that's cool.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, moving on from that, new Five Nights at Freddy's was shown.
Okay. Is that anything exciting?
I mean, people seem to like Jesus Christ, why can't I even say words?
I don't know.
People seem to like the Five Nights at Freddy's games. So there's that. Whatever. Moving on. This game looked really cool. It's called The Midnight Walk, which has very much so like it's a dark fantasy adventure game, which looked really weird. It gave me like Metroid vibes, kind of, but it's like horror themed, and like Metroid Prime vibes, sort of, but it's like horror themed.
Mm-hmm.
And it also is in VR. It comes out May 8th. It looked a lot like Coraline. I like it. It looks really neat. I hope it's good.
Hopefully.
We saw something called the Darwin Paradox, which is like It's like a platformer, but it's an underwater platform with a squid. But then it kind of looks like Inside and like Braid, not Braid. What's the other game? Limbo, Inside. Those kind of games. It looks like that, but you play as a squid. Neat,
Okay.
I guess.
Hmm.
Little Nightmares, those sort of games. You know what I'm talking about. Warriors Abyss was announced and also immediately released.
Oh, geez. Wonder
Warriors
how that goes.
Abyss seems to be a game similar to like Hades, but it takes place in the Samurai and Dynasty Warriors universe,
Hmm.
and there's like 100+ characters you can play as,
Okay.
and it has like a lot of elements of like Hades mixed with like Vampire Survivors. It's pretty neat looking. I think it looks pretty good. But the prices for it are egregious. Like, first of all, its starting price is $25. So it's like, no. And then you move on from its starting price, and like, well, I mean, apparently it's doing pretty good. The next up is $40 and then $80. So it's like, it's actually insane, the price for that game. And apparently, like, to get the main stuff, you need to at least get the $40 version. So there's that. We then saw the new Onimusha again. We saw this also at the Xbox conference like a week or so ago.
Hmm.
And we saw it again here at the PlayStation conference as well with its trailer. I mean, this game still looks good. It's Onimusha, and Onimusha is awesome. So there you go. We got to see the Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater trailer that leaked on the PlayStation. In case you didn't already know about that, there's a trailer with the release date for Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater Delta, or whatever it's called, the remake of Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater, and they showed that trailer on the PlayStation State of Play that they accidentally leaked on their store a few days ago.
Wait, what happened?
Uh, okay, so last week before the State of Play, like 4 days before it,
Yeah.
if you went onto the PlayStation Store, for some reason there was a trailer with the release date announcement of Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater Delta, and it leaked on the PlayStation Store. And then they officially announced it at the PlayStation State of Play like 4 days later.
Oh, okay.
Like, they put up the trailer early on the store by mistake, and then a bunch of people saw it and posted it online. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay. So it got spoiled a little early.
yeah, it got spoiled like a few days early. Moving on from that, Hell Is Us, which is another. I think this is the one that. Yeah, I think this is another game that's like not a roguelike, but a game similar to Souls game, that sort of deal.
Mhm.
And then, speaking of Souls game, we actually got a really good announcement, which was Lies of P's DLC expansion was announced with a trailer, which looked really, really good. So we saw that. That looked cool. It's called
Uh-huh.
Lies of P Overture, which seems to be an expansion to the base game. Moving on from that,
Uh-huh.
Pixel Junk has a new game that was announced called Dreams of Another, which this
Oh,
game
geez.
seemed rather interesting.
Mhm.
You play as like this guy who's in like his pajamas, obviously dreaming, that sort of deal. And he
Obviously.
has a machine gun, like an SMG slash assault rifle on his back. And when you fire it at things, it creates instead of destroying. So you like fire it at like things that are not fully created, and it creates the rest of the picture. I don't know what they're trying to say with this game, but it's like a third person shooter, but instead of the bullets doing harm, the bullets make things.
Mhm.
So, for instance, you see like a doorway that's all white and it hasn't been built yet, but you fire a bunch of bullets over the shoulder in a third person point of view into that door frame, and then a whole house forms around it and the door gets built. It's very weird. It's very interesting. And I always love pixel junk games, so I'm pretty excited for that one. They then showed Days Gone Remastered. It comes out April 25th on PS5. They then showed Stellar Blade with Goddess of Nikki DLC. They
Okay.
also announced that it's coming to PC in June.
Mhm.
So there's your proprietary or whatever. You always get some kind of PC release in these state of plays. There's your pick for this one. They then showed a weird atmospheric like adventure slash puzzle game called Blueprints, which reminded me a lot of oh god, what was that game? The Witness. So that looked kind of cool.
Okay, that could be
We
fun.
then saw Tides of Annihilation, which looks like another Souls-like, but I don't know what about this one made it look more interesting, but it also had like a lot of like Bayonetta vibes to it, and I dig this a lot. It looked really cool. So maybe it's not a Souls-like, maybe it's more like Bayonetta, maybe it's like a an action adventure slash like a character action game.
Hmm.
Moving on from that, we saw what I can only call the most generic game I've seen in a very long time, in a game called Mind's Eye. And Mind's Eye seems to be, futuristic dystopian society. Things go bad. Guys in the what seems like the military, and something goes tits up, and then he had to be decommissioned, but it didn't work, and he's having some people now after him because he knows secrets or some shit. It seemed very, very, very generic in my opinion, and I didn't really dig it that much. But then after that, we got a game which is called Saros, Saros, which is it was just a cinematic trailer, but apparently it's about this guy who lives on a planet where like the sun dies every so many years and gets like blotted out before its death, and these like creatures show up that you have to fight, and he's like been dispatched to the planet to take care of them, some shit like that, but wasn't fully explained. I was only able to read in like a blurb on the site that semi explained some stuff. But what you need to know about this Saros game is that it's made by House Marquee, and it's supposed to be the spiritual successor to Returnal. So I'm like super excited for that.
Okay.
So yeah, that was the state of play, and it wasn't really that good. Like I don't think it was necessarily terrible, but it was
Yeah,
like
say it
the
doesn't
most.
sound bad. It just
It was
sounds
like
like
the most 4 or 5 out of 10 thing ever. you know?
yeah, yeah. There's some reasonable things there, but nothing that I would be like, oh my god, I'm so fucking pumped. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, just not a lot to really drive like excitement there. I would
Yeah,
say.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. So we got a bunch of this stuff like announced, and like if you like listen to what I said, like no real first party PlayStation games were shown here.
Did they
Period.
even say any? I don't. Nothing stood out to me as one. But
And maybe Soros, like the House Marquee game that I talked about at the end.
mhm.
But like everything else, like it's in other places. So it's like, yeah, normally when I see these states of play, for PlayStation, I think, okay, they're one of the ones that still have those exclusive first party games. They're one of the people that still do that sort of thing. So clearly they're going to want to put their best foot forward to try to sell their console. That was not here today. That was really not here. It was like state of multiplats, basically. Everything was a multiplat except for maybe like one game. And it really it didn't look that good, like at all. Now, there were several games in here, obviously, like, Monster Hunter Wilds, Yakuza, Pirate Yakuza, all that stuff. Like, yeah, I know I want to play those games. Yeah, I know those games are probably going to be good, but I'm
Yeah, some
not
strong
going to
third
play
party
them
showings.
on PlayStation. So, like,
Mhm. Yeah, no, I agree. Makes a lot of sense.
I don't know. It seems like when Nintendo clearly is they live off their exclusives, and
Yeah,
people claim that that's what PlayStation does too. But like they really haven't had any this generation.
no, I
So
really
like
don't. PlayStation's always lived off of. I think the asterisk is though PlayStation's always lived off of third party exclusives. Um, they have had some notable first party games, but
yeah,
I think the drive for
like
PlayStation
Spider-Man
has
2.
always been the sum of the whole and not the individual parts. So
Well,
and like
even so, people like Square Enix, for instance, are like pulling
mhm,
out a PlayStation. You know,
yeah.
I
Mhm.
talked about that last year. They're like, exclusives is not where we're going to be at in the future. We want to have our games on as many platforms as possible. And it's like, okay. And they're like, yeah, our games didn't sell that well. And it's like, all right, well then go other places. And they're like, yeah, that's what we plan on
That's
fucking
what we're
doing.
doing.
So
Yeah. But you think about it, it's like even back to the PlayStation 2, you know, system. Well, even I guess maybe PlayStation 1, but we'll just say PlayStation 2 just for this
yeah,
example because I think it's a stronger example. But people weren't buying that for like I'm sure there were some, but
Yeah.
People weren't buying it for like Jack and Daxter. They were buying it for Final Fantasy. They were buying it for Metal Gear. They were buying it for those real strong third party things. People were buying it for a fucking DVD player.
Yeah,
More so
exactly.
than they were buying it for Sony's games. Not to say that Sony's games weren't strong during that generation, but they just weren't necessarily system sellers. But they were great games to get along with the stuff that you wanted anyways, like the Final Fantasies and the Metal Gears. Then it's like, oh yeah, I can get this Jack and Daxter, I can get this Ratchet and Clank, I can get what else did they have that generation? SOCOM. Those
SOCOM
kind
was
of
great.
things. Yeah. SOCOM was probably more of a system seller than a lot of the other stuff, but even that got overshadowed by
Yeah,
like
I
Call of
remember
Duty.
like watching Tech TV back in the day, before they became, whatever the hell they turned into. What was it they turned into? I don't remember the fuck they became.
Was it
Anyway,
Tech TV turned into, was it ZD something, or was that Tech TV Time?
no, that's the same people that did like X Play and stuff.
No, I know.
What
I'm trying to
did they
think which
become?
way the channel went, because I think at one point it was like ZD something or other.
ZDTV, but like they had what was the gaming portion called?
X Play?
No, X Play was the TV show, but what was the G4? There it is.
Oh,
There it is.
G4. There you are.
G4,
Yep.
G4.
I
Tech
see what you're
TV
looking for.
became ZDTV, then it became G4. That's what happened. Anyway, that's when it became more like multimedia focused and like tech and as well
Yeah.
as like gaming and television and other stuff and whatnot. But anyway, my point is that wow, my brain doesn't know what my point was. Wait, hold on. What were we talking about? You could tell I'm tired.
PlayStation.
How did I get
First
from
party games,
PlayStation?
third party games.
Yeah, yep. How did I get
Uh,
the Tech TV?
mm, trying
Oh,
to
I
think.
remember. SOCOM. I got it.
Oh yeah,
SOCOM,
yeah, yeah,
SOCOM,
yeah, yeah.
SOCOM. There was a show on Tech TV back in the day that was like esports before esports became like a big televised thing. And
Mhm.
I found out about SOCOM through that show on Tech TV. That's what sold me on SOCOM, because I like actually saw like the way people would play that game, and I was like, this is fucking cool. And I do actually think, at least from like a more competitive standpoint, that SOCOM was a system seller. I think you're right. I think it was a system seller if you were into competitive games. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I said definitely. Like I said, for any of those games, I'm sure there are people that bought them for them specifically. And I know working at GameStop at the time, there was definitely.
Mag was
But
so good, and I stand by that game was way ahead of its time.
oh yeah, I agree. But yeah, I mean, Tony's just. My point was they've gotten some more now, some more systems. Like they've gotten some legitimate system sellers now. I would say like God of War, has become one. Last of Us has become one. But they just really don't. A lot of their first party stuff is just not as strong as Nintendo's, and arguably, I would even say to some degree, not as strong as Microsoft's. Surprisingly.
Yes, I do agree that Microsoft has some like really strong things, but obviously them going third party and stuff, you can then just, I guess you can just call them a third party now. But even so,
Yeah.
they're like first party quote unquote games, like Forza, for instance, or Gears are like really good games. I would say even like Halo is, but it's just kind of, it's in the hands of people that don't know how to handle it right now.
Yeah. I don't want to.
It's the kind of like Rare is good. Like Sea of Thieves is a great fucking game. It did really well when it came to other platforms.
Oh yeah, but I still don't think Microsoft has gotten their money out of Rare.
No, absolutely not. They need something else from Rare. I mean, I guess
I
they
don't
could
think
just.
Microsoft's gotten money out of most of their acquisitions, to be honest. Maybe
I
Bethesda.
I would say maybe Bethesda, but also then you got to look at how much money they might be pumping into Bethesda for the next like Elder Scrolls, and then it's like, okay, maybe they didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. How much they pumped in for Elder Scrolls? How much they pumped in for, what was that game? The space game.
Starfield, which is dog shit. Yeah, no, I don't think they've gotten their money out of Bethesda or Rare. I don't think they've gotten their money out of really anyone that they've acquired, and I don't really know what they're doing other than just trying to hoard everything.
Yeah, it seems like it. And I think they've very much so lost direction over the last year. Actually, I was thinking about it afterwards when we talked about Concordia during game of the year, and you were like, what category most disappointing? And you were like, well, I was like, well, this would be a good slam dunk for hottest mess.
Yeah.
But I thought about it afterwards, and I was like, well, actually, I think Microsoft has a very good case for that category too,
Yes.
if we brought it
They
back. Mhm.
Yeah, I think so too. But I would say I don't think the Activision acquisition would take it because I think they made bank off of that from this year's Call of Duty alone, to be
But
completely honest.
it's not the Activision acquisition that's at the
Okay.
hottest mess. It's
Yeah.
it's their state as a publisher, um, just as a whole with what they're doing direction wise.
Okay. Yeah, I understand.
Mhm.
I understand.
Yeah, because they're kind of in this like first party, third party limbo, and they can't quite
Yeah.
seem to make up what they do. And honestly, I think that they are destroying what little user base they may have left. And
Oh, I actually have a very hot take on this.
mhm,
I think that right now, what's going on is Microsoft is ahead of the game. That's what I think is. And they are so far ahead that people think they are behind. And people think they are doing really stupid shit when they see what's coming. And I'll break this down. I'll say my exact thoughts on this, all right?
mhm,
Because I've said this before and I ended up getting doxxed and attacked and shit from other people. And I had to run off of social media. But that's fine. That's neither here nor there. Anyway, this is my take when it comes
yeah,
down to it. I think Microsoft has basically played these other things because played these other companies. Because here's the thing, right?
mhm,
What games are all coming to PlayStation 5 this year that we know about that people are actually excited for? It's things like Forza. It's things like the rumored Halo. It's things like
mhm,
this, that, and the other, all coming from Microsoft. Who's getting that money? Who's getting that money on another console that they don't have to produce, which means they're not losing out on money from producing consoles because their competitors doing it for them. So they're still making that money from just selling software.
mhm,
Who is losing money hand over fist by pumping it all into exclusives that are not selling enough to make the money back because of how much it costs to make money off of how much they're like paying for these exclusives? That's Sony with things like Spider-Man 2. That was like a $500 million investment.
mhm.
That takes a lot to make back that big of an investment.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
Um, I think Microsoft saw that in the future, games in general will become unsustainable as exclusives purely based off the cost it takes to make them. Because as technology has gone up, it has cost more money, and it's cost more. It's taking more people to create these games, and it's taken longer to create these games, which leaves people with a really big lull period where there's nothing in between, such as Sony has right now. We don't see Wolverine, we don't see the next Last of Us, we don't see, what have you. You know what I'm saying? We don't see those
uh-huh,
major titles coming from Sony or even being announced yet because it's going to take a very long time to make and a lot of money to do so. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And because of that, Microsoft saw that that's an issue and we need to find a way to offset these costs. How do we offset these costs? We make our competitors pay for it by having them sell their systems with our games on it, and we just make money by putting our games on it. That is genius. And I do think that that is something that in the future, and we're even already seeing it happen right now with PlayStation. Right now, PlayStation's putting all of their games, they're porting their games to PC. They're porting their major titles to PC. And when you think about it, their team that they put together for the PC team was like 20 million, I think, for the whole like studio over
mhm,
time, and they've made like 200 million off of just software sales right now, which
mhm,
completely offsets the cost of that studio. So whereas Microsoft decided they would make their competitors pay for offsetting the cost of their product and be able to continue to make games that way, such as Indiana Jones, such as things like Avowed, which just released, and such as any other, first party quote unquote Microsoft titles that will be coming in the future, Sony decided that they'd have the PC players pay for offsetting their costs, as well as the PS5 players by buying remaster after remaster after remaster after remaster after remaster, and that's how they're offsetting their costs.
Mhm.
Now, there's one outlier here that a lot of people will always point to and be like, yeah, well, what about Nintendo? And my response will always be this: what about Nintendo? It doesn't cost $500 million to make a single game for Nintendo. They're on lower end hardware. It doesn't cost as much money to make the content they're making. They're still making money. They don't need to go this route yet. Will they 5-10 years down the line? Maybe. Will that happen? We don't know. But
Yeah.
right now, the two big heads, that being Microsoft and Sony, they're having to find some ways to offset the cost of these massive games that they are creating. And their best way to do that for Microsoft is selling on their competitor's platform and making money without having to make consoles that would cause them to lose money by selling their games on things like your TV or your streaming device or what have you, that sort of stuff. And PlayStation is by selling their games on PC, as well as, doing things like, they just recently did the like PlayStation Portal, which was getting into streaming from the PlayStation 5, and those sold a lot, so that made them a decent chunk of money because it didn't cost that much to make the PlayStation Portal. So like branching out into things like that, or having things like their InZone series, for instance, doing things like that is how PlayStation's offsetting their costs. And currently Nintendo is offsetting their cost as well, but they don't really need to offset that much cost. But the way they're doing it is through mobile games. You've got your like Pokemon, Pokemon Go, which was the first one they did with Niantic, and then you've got like that Pokemon Dota clone. You've got things like that. You've got like the Pokemon Cafe. You've got things like the Mario Kart World Tour. Was that what it was? I don't remember what the fuck it was.
Yeah,
You've got the Fire Emblem. You had the Animal Crossing. You had this, that, and the other. But they were making more money by releasing those mobile games. So Microsoft releasing on PlayStation, PlayStation releasing on PC, Nintendo releasing on mobile. They all need alternate revenue streams, and that's how they're doing it. And I think that Microsoft, by immediately releasing their games on competitors' hardware and all the streaming stuff and everything, found the smartest way to do something right now to keep themselves alive and making a lot of funds. Because if I'm not mistaken, Microsoft made like the most they've made in profit last year because of this change. So whereas people on the outside, like on the console side of things, as well as like, gamers are like, I don't fucking understand this, Microsoft's just counting their fucking money, essentially. So, it's a different way of going about things, and it's really odd, but I do feel like at some point, to offset the cost, PlayStation's going to have to do one or two things. They're either going to have to start releasing on Xbox and Switch, which we already saw them release the newest Lego Horizon Zero Dawn on Switch, or they're going to have to go day and date and release their games the same time on PC as on PS5 or 6 or whatever. One of those things is going to happen, and that's going to be how they're going to have to offset cost. Otherwise, they're going to start running into the same problem that Microsoft is running into, and they're going to have to figure out some way to fix it, similar to the way they did. And I don't think their fan base will like what will happen when they have to go down that route. Just like Microsoft doesn't like what's happening right now with them going down that route.
It seems like on Sony's side of thing, though, and probably to some degree Microsoft as well, it's both of them have no problems letting their budgets balloon out of control.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
That seems to be their biggest thing they need to address. And yes. I don't know. It will be interesting to see how the Microsoft stuff shakes down. My concern is more that,
like I said, they did turn record profits last year after they went this route. So like, you can say it's weird and they have no direction, but clearly they're making money. So they have some idea of where they're going. We just don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, I don't know. It will be interesting to see. I think it's too early to say that they're ahead of the game or behind the game, but I do think that there's some reasonable concerns there.
Oh yeah, I don't disagree. There absolutely is.
Yeah, that kind of with what direction they're going. It may still not be sustainable, but we'll see.
See. If they continue to let things balloon out of control, you're going to have to wait and see how sustainable this move is, because it could end up being like, people don't want their games as they come to PlayStation,
Yeah.
or maybe they do. But like, you look at all the people on PlayStation right now, they're like, I can't wait to play Indiana Jones. I can't wait to play Forza. That sort of thing. And it's like, right now it's working for them, and
Yeah.
until it doesn't work for them, this is probably going to be their direction that they're going, which is not really like a third party publisher where they drop their console, but more of, we put these games everywhere
Mhm.
eventually. So like, for instance, last year Indiana Jones was on Xbox, and this year it's going to be on PS5. Maybe they do something similar to that, sort of like how Sony has been like last year. Final Fantasy was on PS5, and this year Final Fantasy Rebirth is on PC. And it's the
Mhm.
same course of action. It's just a different way of doing it, if that makes any sense. Because
Yeah.
Microsoft isn't competing with like PC. I mean, they fucking own Windows, so like, they don't need to do that. But Sony, if they can put their games on PC, that's like putting their games on Microsoft, and Microsoft putting their games on PlayStation at the same time.
Mhm.
It's kind of the same deal when you think about it, but
Yeah.
it's just a different box.
Mhm. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what they do.
And that's not to downplay Microsoft. Microsoft's made a lot of stupid fucking decisions. Like,
Oh yes.
simple as that. They've made so many dumb fucking decisions. I think the fact that they were so unwilling to communicate with indie developers and people when they released their games on their platform, that they would have to wait months to be able to contact them and actually get things sorted out when there were big issues, or
Mhm.
when like there were issues with getting their games actually put onto the system. I think that was the fucking dumbest shit that I've seen in a very, very long time. I think you need to have communication with your developers, and if you don't have communication with your developers, you've fundamentally failed as a publisher, and you fundamentally failed as a brand if you can't handle that. And that's bad. That's really bad. And Microsoft had a lot of those problems over the last few years, quite a few of those problems, and someone needs to fix that shit. I have seen that now several games that weren't coming to Xbox are coming to Xbox, and it does seem like they're being more receptive to communicating with developers, which is good. But the
Mhm.
question is it smaller developers that's also getting this attention? Because I'm only seeing it from like larger developers so far, So if we're not seeing it come from like, these indie devs that are also being able to easily communicate with Microsoft, then that's still a very big problem. Because I don't give a shit if you're Capcom, or if you're like fucking, I don't know, Konami, communicating with Xbox. Oh boy, who gives a fuck? If that's fine. You were eventually going to be able to communicate with them. The problem is when you don't have your indie devs and smaller developers being able to communicate with you, and they can't really get their shit pushed out as quickly because it's just not viable for them, because they can't communicate with the people they're trying to put their content on. And that's a huge problem that Microsoft has had this entire generation. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully they get it sorted. Well, I guess we'll see. I mean, we'll really see. This year is going to be the big push into PlayStation, so we'll really see if it ends up paying off for them or not. So.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I think this year's both Forza and Halo, right? I mean,
Forza,
I'm
well, at least
excited.
rumored, at least as far as
I'm
I know.
excited to play with more people. More people being able to play Halo is always a good thing, so I'm actually pretty excited for that.
Yeah. Mhm. All right. That's all I
I
got.
think I have yapped as much as I possibly can. I wanted to go more into detail about things because I also decided to go back to streaming this week, since I had I had the Nightreign key and there was nothing telling me that I couldn't stream it, so I did.
Mhm.
Um, I had learned a lot of things about streaming with a capture card, which I did not know before.
Mhm.
And I wish I would have known it before, because I didn't really look too far into streaming with a capture card. I just bought one and used it, and
Mhm.
it seems that the way like things have changed over time with like upstream, downstream, all that sort of thing. When you're
Mhm.
selecting your output for things on stream, I think a lot of people should probably learn about how like some of the newer streaming stuff works. So I will just say this. If you do stream with a capture card, even if your capture card is 1080p, change the scaling like on your canvas to 4K, and then downscale it to 1080p from the 4K, so it's at its original resolution. This will make it so it'll be less blocky and less pixely, and make it so things will look more like appropriate. They'll look correct, and they won't get bit crushed to hell when you upload it to something like YouTube. I wish I would have known this beforehand. This is one of the easiest ways I've found to fix this problem. So if anyone is having this problem, do this, because it's the easiest way and easiest solution I've found for this issue. So there you go. That's my little hardware tip for people that want to stream.
Okay. Ready to wrap up?
Yep, I'm done. I ain't got nothing else. That's all I got.
All right. Wow. On that note, then, thank you everyone for listening to us tonight. Don't forget you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Amazon, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. All of our episodes are available on game-crunch.com. And if you want to send us an email, you can send us an email at gamecrunchcast@gmail.com. Brandon.
Yep.
Any final thoughts?
No.
All right. Well, that said, my name is Mike Anastasia. You can find me online. I'm Clash of Bang with there or on your favorite gaming console. And until next week, game on.
Game on.
Game on, Mike and Brandon on the screen. Diving deep in the pixel stream. Every level, every quest shine. Game on, got that power up, feeling blessed. Controllers up, hear the cheer. Blasting through the gaming sphere. Game on, here we go, Mike and Brandon's zone. Game on, unlocking secrets, never playing alone. With every challenge, our spirits align. Level up, hit the score, it's a neon sign. Jump and run, join the thrill, it's a world premiere. Game on, in the realm of heroes, we conquer the fear.
I'm just a little tired.
Me too. Take a nap.
Okay, good night.